to the Don Edwards San Francisco Bay National Wildlife Refuge. The Salt Pond Restoration Project started in 2003 when the federal government and the state purchased 15,000 acres of former salt ponds to be restored back into tidal marsh and also be maintained as ponds. So some of our islands, we're right here on the map in El Viso. Some of the islands right out on our trails have been maintained as ponds where we built islands for nesting shorebirds. So in the winter months, starting now in the fall, we get migratory waterfowl and shorebirds that come through, and they just hang out on the ponds and they hang out on the islands. And in the spring and summer, we get stilts and avocets and terns, mostly foresters' terns, and recently some Caspian terns that nest on the islands. And then some of our ponds we opened up to bay waters by basically breaking down big chunks of levee. You can see in this picture maybe that the levee was broken down by a big bulldozer, and we just took out big chunks of levee and left little mounds. And now this little section out here is now all mud flats, and then ultimately it'll grow pickleweed and it'll be returned into a salt marsh habitat for our two endangered species, the California ridgeways rail and the salt marsh harvest mouse.
We don't actually plant plants. We actually let the seeds come in on the tides, and they deposit and they germinate and they'll grow out from there. And so for the most part, we don't actively restore with plants those tidal habitats. Again, it's going to be more dependent on the elevation, and until we get some accretion of some sediment, those plants wouldn't necessarily persist there. And so we're letting nature do the restoration for the most part. I'll point out that there are some areas where we actually do some active planting, and we've been working with Save the Bay to do a community-based restoration out here where there have been planting some of the plants that are in the transition zones between the lower wetland areas and the higher upland areas. There's these critical transitional habitats which are few and far between in the bay, mostly because the levees are not shallowly graded. They're very steep and they don't provide a very big band of that habitat area, whereas for this project and in others in the bay, we've actually graded those levees out into a broader transition, and so a less steep slope will provide a bigger area for those transitional plants. And Save the Bay has been working with community-based volunteers to actually do active planting as well as removing exotic and invasive plants. Wetlands provide not only habitat features for the birds that depend on them on the Pacific Flyway, but also salt marshes provide significant flood protection for us that are going to be more and more important over time, especially as sea level rise becomes a greater reality for us.